Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show. I'm glad to have you guys here on this Thursday, April 13th, 2023. Thank you for tuning in. I'm glad to have you guys here. Now, here's the thing, guys. Joe Rogan. You're all familiar with the Joe Rogan show. Very interesting show. I was watching a Joe Rogan episode that wasn't Joe Rogan. And he was talking to Sam Altman. And to me, I couldn't distinguish the difference between his voice. It was an AI-generated program. Well, Joe Rogan issues a warning after AI-generated version of his podcast surfaces. Unbelievable. Let's just take a look here. If you guys aren't familiar with Sam Altman, let me see. I'll show you a picture of him right here. This is Sam Altman. So that was the simulated guest during the program. I couldn't distinguish a difference between his voice, between the real Joe Rogan and the AI. This makes me start to think, hey, you know what? I mean, if AI can simulate voices like that so well, you cannot distinguish the difference between a person's voice, and soon it'll be able to. It's very close to being able to simulate a person as themselves. Right now, you can still tell it's a little something off. It's not quite right, but they're getting very close, and this thing is growing. The power, I've heard of the new AI generated engines out there. Boy, I mean, we could really be manipulated by the media. It could be all, or who knows where AI would leave off and real media would begin. So, I mean, this is really something to think about here. Anyway, guys, we want to move on. We want to look at this toxic fire. Just look at this thing. Massive toxic fire. In Indiana, right now, it's burning, and they can't put it out. The only thing that they can say is, oh, well, it's not in the residential community. So, yeah, we've got a big plus. It's not moved to the residential community. It's right next door. But the people in the residential community, they're on either lockdown or been moved away. And this is a cloud of toxic chemicals moving into our atmosphere. And it's going to burn for days. It's still burning. It's going to burn until, I guess, this weekend. It says toxic fire from Indiana recycling plant could burn for days. Now, I got something to say about this, guys. Think about this for a minute. Didn't last year or a while ago that we had a whole bunch of fires in food distribution warehouses, and they were all like food distribution warehouse, food distribution warehouse, food distribution warehouse. Boom, 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 boom. Fire, 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 fire. Now it's toxic chemical fire. Toxic chemical fire. Toxic chemical fire. Toxic chemical fire. I mean, I was just on here a couple days ago talking about toxic chemical fires caused by train derailments. Now it's a recycling plant, but it's still a toxic chemical fire. What do you guys think? What do you think's going on? I don't know, but I'm just saying. I mean, it just seems like you guys know that there is a Cold War going on right now. You guys know that there's a Cold War. It seems it's between NATO and the BRICS nations. I mean, yeah, it started out. It was China and the United States. It's a trade war. This thing has morphed into a Cold War. They're building nuclear weapons as fast as they can right now. China, Russia, and the United States. Is that the treaties have just been busted to pieces that we had that lasted for years, that ended in the last Cold War. Yeah, it's a lot of stuff going on. Let's take a look now at silver. Now, I told you guys this thing's leaving the station. Nothing goes up in a straight line, though, guys. But we have seen a lot of good days here. And if you guys bought in when it was $18, and I was telling you guys, hey, it's under 20. But you guys said, oh no, I don't know if I'm going to buy because of the premiums. Well, the premiums haven't went away, even though the prices went up. The spot price. You still have to pay premiums. But what I'm telling you guys is it still hasn't really left the station yet. It's still down way low. And I know you guys are saying, well, it's went way up. A lot of guys out there are probably saying to themselves, oh, it's went up now, it's ready for a big drop. Well, maybe it will drop a little bit. But ultimately, the train is going to leave the station pretty soon because the dollar is in big trouble. Of course, I've been talking about this for years, that the dollar is going to be in big trouble at a certain point. I'm not exactly the only one. Jim Willey, he said the dollar, and he said this years ago, he said the dollar is going to go up and up and up and up and up in value, and then it's just going to collapse. Well, we're hitting that inflection moment. And what's bringing it on? The BRICS nations. Simply put. We're going to move through and take a look at the price of gold today. So silver's up 38 cents at 25.86. Taking a look at gold today. Gold is at $20.45 today. It's up $30.90. So this is a pretty big day for gold. All I can say, guys, is about time. Those bullion banks that were controlling the price, and the main one was J.P. Morgan. They really held power over the gold and silver market for a long time there, and depreciating the value. We touched $50 on silver way back when $50 would buy something. And we're still only half that price right now. So it just kind of points towards showing you guys exactly. $50 back then was the same as over $200 now in purchasing power. So this shows you the power that silver has to easily go over $200 now at this point. So when we look at a $25 price and people complain about the premium on top of that, you got to think what's going to happen to your other assets that you have, like money in the bank, during this period in time. In fact, money in the bank right now is, all the time I was growing up, guys, money in the bank meant just that. It's as good as money in the bank. Because, and they built your trust since the 1930s, and an awful lot of people that lived in the 1930s are gone now. But they realized, they said, don't trust the banks. But the banks they tried to earn your trust all those years from the 1930s until nearly the present time. And savings and trust, that's because they wanted your trust. And they give you things like, the years I was growing up, they give you a toaster for opening up an account. Well, right now they're starting to pay people again, I guess, to open up accounts. But something really big has happened here, and it's went beyond notice of you guys. And maybe you guys, some of you guys are aware of it. And I'm going to say it right now. That lending is drying up right now. And that's the primary method where currency is actually created in the system. Well, consumers are tapped out anyway. An awful lot of people are tapped out. They just can't afford to take on more debt. And so now we're in a crisis situation. And this magnitude of what's coming, I've been looking at a lot of charts, is just as great and powerful as what happened in the 1930s with the Great Depression. So we're not heading to a recession. It might start as a recession very soon, but ultimately where it's going is a depression. And if you guys don't realize how powerful a depression is for making people poor, you're gonna realize it. But this is a different kind of depression than we had last time. Last time we had what was called a deflationary depression in the 1930s, where your cash that was out of the banks, like if you had some cash stored away someplace in the 1930s, that cash became worth more and more. People got to the point where they work all day long for $1. back then, in those days, during the Great Depression. Now what's going to happen is your cash is going to be worth less and less and less. And alternatives to cash, alternative forms of liquidity like gold and silver, are going to be worth more and more and more this time, because this is a different animal. This is a hyperinflationary depression. So it's coming in fast. You're going to start to see the real profound effects of this thing start to hit before this year is over. So be aware of that. And who it's really going to hurt is fixed income denominated in dollars. Things like retirements and stuff like that. It's going to be really damaging, but it's going to be damaging on workers as well, because your wages aren't going to keep up when this thing really gets going. Wages right now are roughly rising about 3.5% per year. That's where wages are going right now. And you know the inflation has been running hotter than that. At least double. And you know they pull tricks too. Let me just tell you guys. On the inflation thing right now, one of the things they're working with is, you remember when gas went up to like $6 a gallon? Right? They can make a comparison between the price it is now, roughly at the pump of around I'm talking in the United States, around $3 a gallon, from when it was up around $6 a gallon. You remember, not that long ago, you had to pay for it at the pump. It didn't last real long at that price, but they can count that in on their consumer price. They can count that in, and that kind of gives them a little edge to say, okay, well, because gas fuel prices are lowering. Now they can say, well, they can put that into the, they count stuff like that. They use every little trick available to them to try to make inflation look like they're taming it, when in fact it's still way over their 2% target. Anyway, moving on. Taking a look at cryptocurrency today. Cryptocurrency is maintaining its price over $30,000 for Bitcoin. It hasn't just went up there and dropped suddenly. It's maintaining this now. And it's leading me to conclude that something's going on here. We're starting maybe entering into a new cryptocurrency bull market. This is what it kind of looks like to me at this point. I see strength in it. 30,255 right now for Bitcoin. Ethereum is at 1997. And XRP is 50 cents, just over 50 cents a piece. I know a lot of you guys out there are XRP fans, and I like XRP too. So moving on and taking a look at the S&P 500 today, and what we're looking at is 4,117. It's up 25 points today. Taking a look at the Dow Jones Industrial Averages today, we're seeing it's up 119 points at 33,766. Taking a look at crude oil. Crude oil's jumped again. No, this is not crude oil. Silver. How did that get on silver? I'm sure that was... just give me a second here. I thought I had it set on crude oil. Clicked on crude oil. I know I clicked on crude oil. $82.90. It's down 36 cents on the day so far. So crude oil. And now we're going to take a look at bonds and rates today. And we're seeing falling yields today. We're looking at a 10-year at 3.39. It's down 2.3 basis points. And the U.S. 30-year at 3.63. It's down 1.7 basis points. Now, this is their baby. But bonds, this is the Treasury and the Fed. Between them, this is their baby. They can control this. And I just can't help but think, who would want to buy this garbage right now? I mean, you're buying, really, if you're buying this Treasury bonds, they say, oh, Treasury bonds, oh, that's my biggest safe haven asset, whatever, blah, blah, blah. but in my mind, you're buying from a defunct corporation. Basically, a corporation that's deep in the red, almost $32 trillion in debt. What does that mean? It means that these things are denominated in dollars, and the corporation that controls the dollars is $32 trillion, almost $32 trillion in debt, and soon to go up higher, much higher, because, you know, when the debt ceiling comes due, you know they're going to push it through with a new big borrow. That's what they always do. And then they just put it on their tab. Eventually, because they can print never-ending amounts of liquidity or money, or what we call money, which is Federal Reserve notes, eventually they're going to make those Federal Reserve notes worthless. So they're not going to default on these treasuries, outright default on them. And this is what does make them into sort of a safe haven asset for investors, because they're not going to default, but they're just going to keep printing and creating more new Federal Reserve notes until they're worthless. Like I said, the primary method of creating new currency into the system is the banks lending out and making loans. And now that this is drying up, we're in this deflationary spike event. So this makes it very complicated to predict, because in a deflationary spike event, the only thing that forces them to create more money, or what we call money, Federal Reserve notes, is when the system starts to collapse. And the system collapses deflationary. But what it triggers is inflation. So it's the collapse that triggers the next stimulus, or the next surge of inflation. So it's an up-down cycle here. So the system tends to move toward deflation, and then that triggers them to create a whole bunch of new Federal Reserve notes, which creates inflation. So it's the deflation that creates the inflation. It'll get to a certain point in time where they'll embrace the inflation, because the collapses will become so powerful, so overwhelmingly powerful, that they have to try to print their way out of them. And this is what creates your hyperinflation. So it's deflation, or deflationary pressures, and right now those pressures are taking the form of disinflation, that causes the inflation. Now, that's very hard to understand, how deflation would cause inflation. But this is why I said, before they started all this, I said what they need to do is hold the line to not create this next deflationary cycle or deflationary spike event, to let it run smoothly into inflation. And then it takes a lot longer, it's a lot slower, because what they do is they stimulate by creating the situation that causes deflation. Then they create more inflation on the other side faster. Ultimately, it has to move into inflation, or they let the system completely collapse. I mean, it's just... Okay, moving on. We're taking a look at the dollar index today, which is dropping, and it's dropping rather steeply. We're at 100.95 today. It wasn't long ago we were at like 104, 105. But do I expect this to really be the be-all and end-all I go by? No, because the dollar's being compared against a basket of other currencies that are just as bad, if not worse. And so this is how it maintains its strength in the US dollar index. Okay, guys, thank you for listening to my show. Like and subscribe. We'll catch you guys in the next episode. Bye-bye.